911, what's your emergency?
Someone's come up here and beat these people. They're about dead.
I'm sorry? Okay, you're saying they were assaulted?
Yes, someone's got them. They're bleeding, laying in the shower, bleeding to death. I need help.
Oh my.
Well, this one over here got her neck cut.
Okay, alright, okay, everybody stand over here by the cars, because right now this is now a crime scene.
My 25-year career as a law enforcement officer, I've never seen anything to that magnitude. That was probably one of the most horrific things I'd ever seen.
Just when they thought it couldn't get worse, another crime scene with 2 more victims took the horror to an unimaginable level.
There's blood on the floor.
It's a guy. He's been beat.
Got another body down here.
It didn't take long for detectives to uncover a chilling connection. All 4 victims were linked to each other. Officers feared for the worst, but then something shocking occurred. One of the 4 victims survived and held the key to solve this entire case right away.
Who is the person that did this to you? Can you write his name down?
On February 4th, 2019, the police received a horrifying call from Vigo Road in Liberty Town, Ohio, USA. On the other end was a terrified relative who had just made a grisly discovery about her niece and her partner. She claimed that a woman and a man were ruthlessly attacked. Upon receiving the information, the officers rushed to the address, and when they arrived at the crime scene, they discovered something so gruesome that it would haunt them for years to come.
Oh my.
Well, this one over here got her neck cut.
50-year-old Rick Adams lying outside the home unconscious and severely injured. He had suffered 2 gunshot wounds, including one to his head. Just a few steps forward lay 51-year-old Tammy Potts Williams, who was in no better condition. She was drenched in blood, with her throat cut and covered with bruises. As the officer approached the disturbing crime scene, he gasped in horror at the sight before him.
It's just hard to believe that there are people in this world that will do things of that nature.
As the investigators moved towards the house of horrors, the neighbors warned them about the possible threat that might await them.
Okay, alright, okay, everybody stand over here by the cars, because right now this is now a crime scene.
There's a noise inside the
Okay,
house.
please.
Go on, okay?
21, you're going to want to start down here. Let's go, clear the house.
Watch that cut through.
Sheriff's office!
Watch that cut through.
Sheriff's office, you're in here, make yourself known!
However, as they entered the home to find the possible attacker, the house was empty. After ensuring everyone's safety and confirming there was no trace of the attacker, the officers quickly transported the injured Tammy and Rick to the hospital. They then began investigating for any possible evidence or information related to the attack. The detectives discovered that the unmarried couple had been living here together, but the neighbors had no idea who might have attacked them or why. Rick's friend and neighbor had also called them before Tammy's aunt to inform them about the attack. He was visiting Rick to get the pop cans he had saved for him, but instead would make a shocking discovery.
So what happened when you got there?
Well, I pulled up there and I said, boy, it's a tight squeeze right here. And I looked over and I said, Rick? I seen that blood run down into that car track. I said, Lord, he's bleeding out. I said, I better get 911.
Had he been having any problems with anyone? Having any falling outs here?
The officers also found a silver Honda car parked right outside Rick's home, just a little distance from where he was found. The car had blood spots inside, and it did not belong to either of the victims. This led the officers to suspect that the owner of this car might have had something to do with the attack. However, as officers were looking for evidence related to this crime, they received another frantic call, and little did they know that this would lead them to the most sinister plot they had ever witnessed.
We went out there and we had knocked on every door, every window.
This call was made from Bowman Lane in Londonderry, Ohio, at 6:59 p.m., just 5 miles away from the horrendous crime scene. The caller, 18-year-old Lauren Potts, was worried sick for her mother's safety, as she claimed that there was a body in her mother's house.
Dispatch contacted me that we may possibly have another crime scene and other bodies.
As soon as the officers reached there, they looked around the home and discovered evidence of another sickening crime.
There's blood on the floor. Yep.
Sheriff's office, call out!
Yep. Scene. Clear the house.
The officers found one male body in the kitchen area who had been heavily beaten and riddled with gunshots. The detectives continued examining the scene, and what they were about to find was about to shock them. As they searched through the house, they also discovered a female's body.
Sheriff's office. Got another body down here.
Hey,
Don't touch nothing else. Leave it.
it's her. I believe it's her. Yeah, her hands are bound behind her back. There's a pillow over her head with a gunshot into it, and there's a toe strap tied around her neck. So
This is the only casing I have found so far.
This woman was found partially undressed and possibly assaulted. Her hands were tied behind her back with zip ties, and she had also suffered gunshot wounds. The killer had used a pillow to muffle the gunshots, minimizing the noise. The officers found the zip ties on the kitchen table and a .32 caliber shell casing from the same area. The blood splattered all across the place, and the scene was enough for the officers to question the extreme violence involved. The victims of this heinous attack were identified as 46-year-old Leanne Marie Potts and 63-year-old Thomas Stephen Littler, better known as Tom Littler, a couple whose names would soon become synonymous with one of the most chilling cases investigators had ever faced. They had married just a month ago and had been living together in this home. The investigation soon revealed another critical detail. The car found at the earlier crime scene belonged to deceased Leanne. But the officers were about to make another shocking and unexpected discovery. Rick Adams, the male victim from the earlier crime scene, was Leanne's biological brother. Now it became all the more urgent to catch the killer who seemed to be targeting this family. But little did the detectives know, the truth behind these murders would unravel a connection far more shocking than they could have imagined. For the primary information, they turned to the person who might have known most details about the case, Leanne's daughter, Loren, who had made the call and was deeply shaken by the incident.
When will we get updates?
As soon as we can. Now your mom lived here, right?
Yeah.
That's Leanne?
Yep.
And this Tom Littler?
Yep, he owns the house.
He owns the house.
Was she in the kitchen?
No.
Was it her?
No.
Was she in there? Yes.
I'm not gonna lie to you, yes.
She's not. Who else was in there? Who does it look like?
I believe the other one's Tom.
When the officer asked Loren about the possible motive of these murders, she revealed one sickening motive that left the officers stunned.
Do you know anybody that would want to harm anyone? Any of these people?
No. My aunt and my uncle, they're quiet. I mean, they...
Is that the ones over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're friends, and Tom's health was getting bad, so they went and got married, so Tom's stuff would be...
Okay.
Tom and my mom have money.
Uh-huh.
So, and my mom was letting my uncle drive her car because she can't drive it right now. I overheard something about a welfare check. My mom just got a really big one, and I feel like it has something to do with money.
Loren revealed that her mother had gotten a significant amount of money from her previous marriage's settlement, and Tom was also pretty well off. He had bought a diamond ring for Leanne and was also supposed to get money from the bank as they were leaving for their honeymoon. This information raised concerns amongst the officers that this case might be related to burglary, but this did not explain the attacks of Rick and Tammy, who did not live that close to Leanne and Tom. As the officers found possible answers to some questions, multiple other questions piled up in front of them. A troubling pattern began to emerge, suggesting that someone might be systematically targeting the members of this family.
Now, was this family targeted? The scenario that you have was who and why, because you're thinking, could this be somebody that knew them all? Or could this be something random? Is this motive for money? Now we're dealing with two scenes. I knew the two had to be connected.
The pattern of targeting two couples from the same household raised concerns amongst the remaining family members too, who grew increasingly fearful for their safety. At this stage, they were uncertain whether the attacker was specifically targeting them or had a different motive altogether.
I didn't know if the person that had done this knew or was after anyone else in our family.
As haunting as these findings were, no one could have been prepared for the horrific revelation awaiting them within the depths of a hidden secret. The police also had no idea about the perpetrator's identity, but were certain about his motive.
At this point now, we're thinking the motivation's money or a burglary gone bad.
As a protective measure, they also tightened the security of victims in the hospital while intensifying their search for the vicious attacker and killer. The officers feared that the person who had done this might target other people too. Till now, they had perceived that this was just a case of robbery, but one call was going to turn the whole case upside down. The officers received a pivotal call from someone who knew Rick and claimed to have information that would shed some light on the dark mystery surrounding this case. One of Rick's friends, 39-year-old James Reinhardt, claimed that he knew who had attacked Rick and Tammy.
Who's Bugs?
Larry Potts.
Larry Potts?
Yeah.
And they call him Bugs?
Yeah, call him Bugs.
Huh.
That's,
I don't know him.
Well, that's Tammy's brother.
Okay.
That's Tammy's brother.
Tammy.
The one.
Okay.
Something happened up there.
Now, has Tammy and him been into it? He wasn't involved in this, was he?
They fight like cats, dogs, and girls all the time.
James alleged that it was Tammy's brother and Leanne's ex-husband, 48-year-old Larry Potts, who was involved in the attack. This information came as a jolt for the investigators, as they had perceived the motive to be money. But now it looked like the killer had a much more sinister motive behind it than just a robbery.
So that information raised our red flags on Larry Potts being involved. We initially thought these crimes could be financially motivated, but then began to think that this could be a family dispute. Was there a common thread between all of the murders? We weren't really sure, but our strongest lead was Larry Potts.
Following this lead, the investigators finally had their person of interest and quickly moved to apprehend him. However, when they arrived at Larry's place, his roommate claimed he was not there. Yet, as one lead seemed to fade, a new glimmer of hope emerged. The next day of the incident, Tammy regained consciousness but was still in a critical state. She could not utter a single word, and her condition was so vulnerable that anyone would question the sanity of her attacker. Tammy had suffered 80 stab wounds to her upper body and multiple bruises that had turned her face purple. Although Rick had succumbed to his injuries, Tammy survived. Despite her dire condition, the officers tried their level best to extract any information from her.
Present is myself and Tammy Wins. Tammy, I know that just as soon as I got here, you recognized me. You're a lot more alert today. You told me that you were very fearful for your safety. Who is the person that did this to you? Can you write his name down? What did they use to hurt you?
As they asked her about the details, she struggled to reveal any information and was unable to even write. Tammy was too traumatized to reveal anything, and seeing her condition, the officers decided not to press her further. Even though they could not get any information from Tammy and Larry was still missing, the officers decided to canvass the area around the crime scenes. As they proceeded further, their efforts soon paid off with a significant breakthrough. They discovered a crucial piece of evidence that could help them identify the killer.
We found one camera that was facing the road right on the lane of Thomas and Leanne's residence, and we found another camera facing the road in between Tammy and Rick's.
Upon learning about the surveillance camera in the neighborhood, the detectives interviewed the neighbors in the hope that they might have seen something that could be useful for the case. When the officers interviewed them, the neighbors indeed revealed shocking information, as they had witnessed something that could leave the case wide open.
You were telling me you saw what looked like Tom's wife's car first?
About 3 o'clock, somewhere in there. What looked like her car is a little silverish.
This was Leanne's car?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was a Honda. I think it was a little grayish Honda. And then it wasn't 15 minutes later again, I reckon. Here comes that other little gray car and had the front hood cocked on it. It come out straight, you know, driving straight out. I mean, it was a flying. And up the road it went. And like I said, it looked like the hood come up on it. The time it topped the hill, the hood was a bouncing up and down. Okay. But they just kept it going.
The CCTV footage revealed an unidentified car chasing Rick's car. The chaser's car's hood was open, and it seemed like Rick was trying to escape. Although this lead seemed crucial, it ultimately proved futile, leaving the officers with nothing but another dead end.
When we first saw the footage, it made this puzzle way worse. You couldn't see the actual drivers of either vehicle. You could tell with certainty the vehicles, but you couldn't see through the windows.
However, the officers got a spark of hope when they received a tip from someone that Larry had returned home. Without wasting a moment, officers responded to his home, determined that they would not miss him again.
Larry Potts! Sheriff's Office! Larry!
Larry already had active warrants against him for unrelated offenses, and he was apprehended on those charges. Throughout the arrest, he remained calm and composed like no other.
Lay down. I mean, like leg across the
You're now in his custody.
Okay.
Whatever he tells you to do.
Thank you.
Nothing on underneath.
Yeah, I know. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. I don't have problems with that.
After his arrest, the investigation took a dramatic turn as a damning narrative emerged, pointing to him as their prime suspect. For the first time in the case, officers uncovered physical evidence that appeared to tie someone directly to the murders. Inside his car, they discovered 2 knives, both stained with blood. This chilling discovery seemed to bring detectives closer to unraveling the truth behind the gruesome killings.
So we, obviously now we're seeing all this intertwining together, trying to put this puzzle back together. Larry was definitely a prime suspect, and thinking, wow, is this your guy?
After taking Larry into custody, he was immediately sent for an interrogation, but what he revealed next left them bewildered. As soon as Larry settled in the interrogation room, the officer began questioning him. The detective asked him about his marriage with Leanne Potts, and how he replied to this question left them shocked.
You're married to Leanne, is that correct? How long have you guys married? 26 years. How long you guys been split up now? You got divorced in a way?
Larry, his voice trembling with emotion, tearfully recounted his marriage to Leanne to the officer. When he was asked how he got to know about the incident and his sister, he answered the questions and showed genuine concern as a brother.
Told you about what happened. I was on my way back and I was on 671. And then when I was coming out of there, Christina, the neighbor, she called me, just going crazy. Something about Jamie and Rick was underneath the trailer. And they were coming. She said the ball was coming, but they had to call the squad. Okay. And it wasn't making sense, well, then she told me that my sister was hurt. Then I got a little bit more, in a little more rush, you know what I'm saying? So I left there.
Larry claimed he did not attack any of the victims and denied all the allegations. As the interrogation continued, the officer asked him about the car that had been spotted on the CCTV, and his reply left the officers in disbelief. He stated that this car belonged to someone known to the victims.
Anyone drive a little gray car with a messed up hood that you know? Just a hood? Yeah, that sheets about comes up, comes off. You Russell or Jimmy Reinhardt? He's in one of those got his little silver car.
Larry implicated Rick's friend James Reinhardt as the owner of the car seen on the CCTV. James had already called earlier to inform the officers about his suspicion of Larry. This accusation added another layer of complexity to the case. Despite this, they did not believe Larry's innocence and remained skeptical about him due to the knives found in his car. Now the police had two suspects, each accusing the other, leading to a tangled investigation. Having compelling evidence against Larry, they took him into custody and pressed forward with the investigation. While the investigation was still underway, the police stumbled upon other jarring evidence. A group of people foraging for mushrooms had discovered Leanne's handbag on the hill. But what was inside would introduce a new, perplexing element to the case.
We were mushroom hunting up the street up here by the horse game.
Okay.
We came across a purse. So we kind of went through it, see what, kind of thought it was odd. There was a purse there. Went through it. It was in a sack, like a plastic sack. Okay. Went through the sack, seen the purse, noticed at the bottom of the sack was a gun. So we were way back in the woods. I said, well, this seems really freaking odd. There's a purse, car keys, ID, credit cards, money, and a gun.
The officers went ahead and searched the wooded area along with the individuals who had reported them about their findings. They combed through the area where her handbag was found, and they also found a knife at that spot. This evidence was sent for DNA testing, and as they found the possible weapon used in these attacks, another piece of evidence came to light. The investigators received a tip from a Burger King employee that someone was trying to make a purchase using Leanne's credit card. Upon receiving this information, the officers quickly headed to the restaurant, and when they apprehended the suspect, they were left shocked to the core.
Hey, bud. Put your hands behind your back here for me.
It was James Reinhardt who was using the card, and they immediately arrested him. Upon his arrest, the officers conducted a thorough search. They found Leanne's credit cards, several receipts, and more than $1,100 in cash. Despite this incriminating evidence, when he was asked if he knew why he was being arrested, he gave a mind-boggling reply, as though he had no idea what was going on.
All of this? What kind of identification do you have?
I ain't got none right now.
Okay.
I should have a bank card on somewhere here. Alright. Everybody got a figure right there?
Just money. Hey. Give me an idea why we might be here.
No, I don't, sir.
The officers guided him towards the police van with a sense of urgency. Meanwhile, they had also unearthed a crucial breakthrough. The same car captured on CCTV earlier, aggressively pursuing Rick, was found in the parking lot. This revelation intensified the case, adding a dramatic twist to the investigation. James had also been spotted using Leanne's card at other places too. Additionally, the hill where Leanne's handbag was found was just a stone's throw away from James's home. All of these findings indicated only one thing, that either he was the one who knew everything, or he might be hiding something. Prior to this case, James was also involved in another felony theft and vandalism conviction in 2016. He was sentenced to a year in prison for community control violations related to these charges. With these key pieces of evidence in hand and considering his past record, James was sent for an intense interrogation, and what he would reveal there would leave the officers stunned. As James sat in the interrogation room, he nervously fumbled through his answers. When the officer asked him about the cards, he claimed that they belonged to his girlfriend. But even here, he gave the officers a big clue.
Where'd you get this debit card, man?
It's my girlfriend. It was supposed to be my girlfriend, but she's seeing our guy right now, so I'm
Who's your girlfriend?
Leah, whatever. I can't think of her name. What? Oh, you can hide that, I don't care.
You can't pronounce your
It's Rick.
Even though James claimed that the cards belonged to his girlfriend, the officers were aware of his possible involvement in the killings. When the detective asked him about Leanne's death, he gave an odd reply.
She's married.
That's her sugar daddy.
She's dead, bud.
Nuh-uh.
James claimed he knew about Rick and Tammy, but had no idea about Leanne and Tom. He was so determined to prove his point that he even claimed that he had called the police because he did not know about this.
Yeah, swear to God. Swear to God, that's why I've been trying to call for 2 damn days. No, don't do this.
Throughout the entire interrogation, James did not show any remorse and gave vague replies. By the end of the session, the investigator had a clear understanding of his deranged motives.
Leanne was dead and he didn't show no emotion whatsoever. I knew at that point he was just full of it and that he was our guy, but he wouldn't confess.
Although James did not confess to any of his crimes, the officers received evidence that would clarify the whole case for them. After 1 month, the report of the DNA match was received, which determined that the DNA found on Leanne's body and the zip ties had matched with James. He was also captured on CCTV of a gas station nearby, from where he had bought the similar ties found on Leanne's hands, further implicating him in the crime.
Reinhardt never did confess, but we did have a mountain of evidence that proved his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
After all of the evidence was against James, and on the basis of that he was charged with 3 murders, 1 attempted murder, and faced 16 other serious felony counts, including aggravated murder, kidnapping, and... After this, James Reinhardt's trial was set to begin in October 2020, but he accepted a plea deal 1 month before on September 23, 2020. He pleaded guilty to 3 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of attempted murder. This plea deal resulted in the dismissal of the remaining 16 felony counts, including a count of... The defense also argued that James did not assault Leanne. They both had a consensual relationship. However, this was never proven. This plea deal allowed for a resolution to the case without the need for a lengthy trial, and on September 30th, 2020, James was sentenced to 35 years of life in prison before becoming eligible for parole. He was also ordered to pay for the victim's funeral costs and unauthorized purchases made with Leanne's credit card, which totaled $5,936.75. James Reinhardt, now 44, is imprisoned at the London Correctional Institution in Union Township, Madison County. He will be eligible for his first parole hearing in September 2054. Although James never confessed the reason behind his vile conduct of killing 3 people, the police suspect that money may have been the motive.
With all the evidence that we had, I believe that Jimmy was the devil. Jimmy also heard rumors about all this money, went into the Littler home. He raped and shot and killed Leanne Potts. Thomas Littler walks in and gets shot in the kitchen, and Rick walks in and seeing the altercation, and Rick tries to make it out the door to his car. Jimmy gives chase. They get in the driveway. I think Rick gets out of it, exits his vehicle. Jimmy approaches him and shoots him in the head. Tammy Williams is hearing a commotion. As she comes out the door, she's seeing whatever the altercation between Jimmy and Rick's going on, and then he attacks her, cut her throat, beat her, stabbed her, and left her for dead.
The detectives never disclosed the exact details of how Leanne, Tom, and Rick were killed, but sheriff's reports indicated a handgun and knife being used in the attacks. Despite the lack of evidence initially, and the emergence of multiple twists, the investigators were able to apprehend the perpetrator.
Anyone who had committed a crime that was as violent and as brutal as these crimes were, it was top priority to get them off the streets and stop them from hurting anyone else.
In the immediate aftermath of the case, Tammy made a full recovery from her injuries after spending 51 days in the Ohio Health Grant Medical Center. She expressed how viciously James had attacked her and how difficult it was for her to comprehend everything. Tammy still misses all of her loved ones.
I had over 80 stab wounds, and he cut my carotid artery right here. That's the last thing I remember until I woke up in Grant Hospital. It wasn't real to me. This hole in my heart has got to be fixed. I've got to understand, because all I do is think about him and Leanne.
Although Leanne's ex-husband, Larry Potts, had nothing to do with these murders and attacks, he was arrested by the Vinton County Sheriff's Office on unrelated charges of assault and drug possession. He was accused of possibly assaulting one or more children he was supposed to be watching. During the arrest, deputies found drugs and a crystal substance in his vehicle. He was charged with assault, endangering children, failure to comply with police orders, obstructing official business, and possession of drugs. Even during his divorce from Leanne, allegations of domestic violence and child abuse surfaced, leading to Leanne being granted full custody of their children in 2016 after a lengthy process. Leanne's daughters still mourn the loss of their mother, uncle, and stepdad. Her daughter, Alexis Potts, expressed how she had found peace when she talked to her mother through angelic energy.
When Mom passed away, I met up with one of my friends who connects with angels, and he's like, I see a bright color of blue, and I was like, it's her, you know, because blue, the ocean, the way that she dresses, and he was just describing her to a T, and I got cold chills all over my body, and I knew that she was there. And then he just started talking about like past memories with her and stuff like that, and he said that she just wants you to know that she is so proud of you and loves you so much. And I felt that so deeply, you know, that was something that I needed to hear. And I just connected with her, and, he just kept saying it over and over again, and that was the closure that I needed.
Meanwhile, her other daughter, Loren, reflects on how she misses her mother's relationship with her granddaughter, who still asks about her. She wants her mother's lasting legacy to be known for how strong she was.
She's 7 now, and she still talks about her mama. And still remembers her really, really a lot, remembers her a lot.
Tammy had to endure the pain of 80 stab wounds before making a full recovery physically. However, her emotional scars could never be treated, and she will forever have to endure the loss of her loved ones.
I just want everyone to know how great Rick was, and Leanne and Tom, and that bastard's in jail. He can no longer interfere with anything about us, and that's a wonderful thing. I'm trying to put all this in place and get to the grief counseling so that I can sort this out. Because I don't know how else to do this.
Leanne and Tom had been married just 1 month before and were planning for a holiday, but those dreams would forever be dreams now. The officers involved in the case described it as one of the toughest cases of their careers. Despite the difficulties, they were determined to leave no stone unturned in their quest for justice for the victims' families.
The biggest mystery of this case, putting it together for a whodunit or for what it was, is you had 3 victims that were all intertwined, with a 4th victim left for dead that was also intertwined. That figuring out the motive and figuring out the why, there was a lot of moving parts on this case.
This was an awful brutal and violent scene. You want to get resolved for the family. You want to get peace for that family and knowing what happened to their loved one.
This case highlighted the darkest extremes of human nature, revealing how far people will go for money and self-preservation. It demonstrated that some individuals can be so driven by greed and self-interest that they'll commit ruthless, cold-blooded murder without a second thought. With this, we ask you, do you think the police's theory explains the actual motive, or was there something more sinister left behind? How do you think James had planned to get away with his evil deeds? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Also, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel as we bring you more interesting true crime cases. If there is any particular case that you would like us to cover, please leave your suggestions in the comments section. Your suggestions are important to us. Till then, stay safe.